Ahora, tu dosis diaria de cultura, música y entretención. Pablo Esquer te cuenta todo lo que ocurre allá afuera. Ahora comienza La Revuelta al Mundo en Radionauta.
Así es, comenzamos una nueva Revuelta al Mundo aquí en radionauta.online. Una Revuelta al Mundo que es más que especial porque ya enfrente mío, in front of me, Mr. Vincent Moon, Mateo Saura, documentalista francés. ¿Cómo estás, Vincent?
Muy bien, es un gran placer estar aquí de vuelta en
6
Chile.
años después.
6 años después.
Mateo Saura, o Vincent Moon, como es conocido en el ambiente musical y en el ambiente del cine y documental musical, está en Chile presentando su película La Cueca antes de Dios. Esta es la segunda película que hace Vincent acá en Chile, la segunda que hacemos juntos además. Se puede introducir en esta narrativa. Vamos a estar conversando con Vincent acerca de todo lo que es el trabajo suyo, su trabajo con músicos, su trabajo con hoy en día el ambiente más espiritual del Brasil, y lo vamos a estar haciendo en inglés porque así nos permite un poco ser más o tener más vocabulario entre los dos.
Sí, más o menos.
Sí.
En español un poco.
En español va a ser más difícil.
Yeah.
Así que lo vamos a hacer en inglés, pero la gente que a lo mejor no está tan versada en inglés, después nosotros lo subimos a YouTube con subtítulos, así que no hay problemas ahí. Pero por ahora va a ser en inglés, así que todos los que estén ahí que sepan hablar inglés o quieran meterse en la conversación, háganlo aquí en el Facebook Live. Y sin nada más que agregar, quiero que partamos conversando. Let's just start talking, Vincent, my friend. Thank you so much for doing this. I just love the idea of a conversation with you.
I love that.
Yeah, with all the experience that you have. I mean, it's impossible to quantify them. But we're gonna try.
Yeah, but you know, it's funny because I was just telling you before this little show that I have less and less memory, so I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to tell many good stories from the past.
Yeah, the thing is that maybe that's a good thing, right? Like just not to have like the story of why did you do this, but like the bigger picture of it.
Definitely. And
Like,
the thing, you know what? We live in a society which is very obsessed with remembering.
yes.
And actually a little bit too obsessed with the past, I think. And so I almost call it my own experimentation on myself and on my brain to see what happens when you don't remember, or of course I remember. I don't have any sickness.
But you don't force yourself to remember this.
No. I like to go into that flow where basically what stays is the present moment as much as possible, you know. And I do believe, and especially I guess I'm saying that because I do record a lot. I do record a lot of sounds and images. I do believe it's the recording process of our generation is extremely problematic because we are creating a very nostalgic form of society, and that nostalgic form of society is not able to cope with the future or with what's coming. And I think this huge fear that we live in our society now is very much due to the fact that we record so much, you know. So I'm just trying to think, how do we juggle with that, you know? How do we record but not kill? Because I do believe that at the heart of the recording process there is a death process as well. So we should, it's like sort of like a dance. How do we dance with that, you know?
Like we're recording as much, like nowadays we record like everything, and everyone records stuff. Absolutely. And you say like this is, it's not about remembering, it's about another thing, right? That not to be thinking about the future. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, at least the problem is that we're really escaping the present moment very much, you know. And I was just on a boat actually this past week with some friends of mine, musicians, and even though we were in complete nature, thanks for playing that music in the background. This is amazing. Actually, I'm gonna tell what it is in a second. Mm-hmm. Even though we were in complete nature and we were like really getting basically lost into this contemplative mode, there was this kind of like insane pressure of the social networks and their desire to kind of like record anything and publish anything was was very scary at some point. It turned out very scary. I realized, and I was the same. I was not really better than the others in that, but I was like, shit, we really have such a hard time nowadays to disconnect from our technological tools. Even though we know that we need to disconnect from those technologies to really reconnect to nature and to the rhythm of nature, and to enter what I call eternity, in a sense. For me, entering eternity is really about entering the present moment, understanding that there is no past, there is no future. There's just only this present moment. The past was present, and the future is gonna be present. You know, there's only this present moment existing right now, and this is what we should all cherish. And I do believe that digital technologies, have the power to actually empower us to be present, although we are using them in the exact opposite way.
Yeah,
almost.
that's it.
And it's a problem of education, I guess.
This idea of this
ourselves.
Instagrammable moment, like this kind of anxiety of just sharing everything.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
I hate Instagram. I fucking hate it, mate. Can I say that?
Yes,
I think it's a terrible, terrible tool. Just, it's, how could I say? It's so wrong compared to what are the possibilities of the digital technologies, you know?
Yes.
It's almost the opposite to me. It's very restricted in what you can do with it. It's sort of like, it really locks you inside.
And gives you this bite-sized kind of content, right? Like no more than 1 minute, no more than 15 seconds.
Insane.
Like
it's insane. I realized, like, you know, I did some videos, some films in August in Berlin in a festival named People Festival, and the videos are like, you know, I don't know, song type of format, so 3, 4, 5 minutes, and so we started to publish them on YouTube. But at the same time, and I didn't know the people who are basically doing the festival were also publishing excerpts of the videos on Instagram, you know, 1 minute excerpts with a link to the YouTube. And basically nobody was clicking on the link. Everybody was watching the short video, the short video, you know. So basically there's always this kind of like, oh yeah, it's important to make a teaser, you know, for the longer piece behind. But nobody goes for the longer piece anymore. We are stuck into teasers. Yeah. We are stuck into teasers of reality. And it's not that bad. It can be an interesting thing, but I think now we're reaching a point where we really have to question that very much, you know. And that's why I keep working on contemplative, long, slow type of cinema, because I think it's extremely important to defend that, you know, extremely, and to not just like say there's no spectators anymore for that. Yeah. Well, mon ami, you know, I do believe there's still some spectators for that, and I do believe actually we have to create those new forms of spectators. You know, we have to educate ourselves again with technologies.
And to think that people cannot digest any more than 1 minute, it's so like wrong in so many levels. Like, do you think people like this? I don't know, not idiots, but they don't have like the intellectual capacity or the time to really absorb any more than 1 minute. It's really, really weird. Yeah,
but we're all the same. I mean, I don't accuse anybody here. I think we're really all the same.
Yeah, we're all being.
I'm the same in my craziness. I mean, who am I to talk about that? I've been, you know, 2 days ago I was on a boat filming. in 3 days, maybe I'm going to be on the other side of the world. So I do have this like craziness inside me.
And
as
even
well.
you, I mean, like when you were on this boat, you were texting me and recording audio for me in the middle of this moment as well. And it's not like you're not part of the moment. It's like you're thinking about what comes next. I mean, even so that even you, I mean, are thinking about.
But I think, you know what, it's very interesting. I think we should come back on this talk a bit later, maybe in our little interview. But I do believe I'm really searching for a way to kind of like use those recording tools, not as recording tools, but as filming tools, as like action tools. You know, as like I love the camera as a pretext to create an action in the present moment. You know. Mm-hmm. I'm not really interested in the fact of recording, actually. I'm interested in the fact of like, how do you use this tool to really push the boundaries of reality and push people into a zone that they would not explore, maybe. And remember when we started the takeaway shows, the Blogotech thing, which is that project I did with some friends in Paris, especially Cried, who still have that, actually. It was maybe like 2006, maybe like 12 or 13 years ago, and I do believe. Did you? Are you
Yes.
doing this live? You're just
Yes.
like, yeah, you found that's the Arcade Fire concert emporté. And so basically, we. Now I lost my idea.
What you were doing with
Yeah, no, I think that actually it's a very good. This Arcade Fire takeaway show is very interesting because, in a sense, it was exactly about that. It was all about how do you push people to do things that they're not supposed to do? How do you push them out of their comfort zones, and how do you push yourself as well out of this comfort zone in the same way, you know? And I developed this way of like improvising with reality and basically improvising my life. And I think I'm getting better at it. And now I think I can say, well, my life is, I'm 39 now. My life is really living the present more and more, actually. And I have less and less plans for the future. And I enjoy it, actually. It's a bit crazy, but I
Don't
go
you
with the
get
flow.
anxious for it? Like, what's
I
coming?
think the world gets anxious for you.
Oh, yeah.
The people around you get anxious.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
They're like, no, come on, this is crazy.
Yeah, like
And
the question
you're like,
is
no,
always...
what? It's fine. And no, this is crazy.
Yeah,
You're out of the norm. And then if your mission or if your desire is to get out of the norm, yeah, great. I play that game. Yeah, I'm really excited to explore possibilities, definitely. And possibilities means life possibilities. How can we live together in a different way? How can we re-engage with reality in a different way? How can we re-understand reality on a different level?
Yeah, the thing is that you did a TED talk not so long ago, 2 years ago, I think. 4 years ago. It's quite some time, so maybe some of it has changed for you. But the thing is that in that TED talk you said that you started working with La Blogothèque, trying to represent the world in an alternative way, to present music in a different way. So what was the idea behind it? It was some sort of boredom, or just some need from boredom from, the already available formats, or just the idea that this could be something new or something else? Like, there's another way to look at music, maybe.
So basically, I think my ideas evolved as long as I was making stuff. I do believe that the ideas should never come before the action. I do believe the other way. I do believe you let your intuitions guide you towards something, and then you think about why you did that. And I think that's how I sort of like try to engage myself with that. I wanted, first thing for sure, I grew up in Paris in my 20s. I went out a lot to see many shows, and so I had this extraordinary luck to have access to so many concerts and live music. And that live music, and my relationship to music is live. It's really this kind of like live, this presence of the moment. And that's what I wanted to represent. How do you translate this into a visual form, How do you translate this into cinema, where basically the images are not there to document something which happened, but more to kind of like engage into a dialogue and create something else in between, The cinema I like, the cinema I come from, is much more abstract and poetic and open than, I guess, most of the documentary films nowadays, which I think are very restricted in their take on reality, very materialist in a way, very politically engaged, which is important, but not when you get so stubborn at like forgetting the possibilities and realities. I think that this desire to kind of like, for me, explore music and try to show it in a different way, bring people into the streets, bring the Arcade Fire into an elevator, was really like, how can we tell different stories?
How could just make a moment just for the people that are watching these videos, something like that, right?
How do I basically create something very open so anybody could engage and make sense, give sense, I don't want to explain things. I think that's basically where I disagree a lot, I guess, with most of the cinema nowadays. I don't want to tell a story with a beginning and an ending. I do not believe in that. I do believe we have to engage into another more transcendental type of relationship with the audience. And that relationship is based on certain mystery, on a certain abstraction, on a certain... on things which are not supposed to make sense, I love to be in front of any art piece, be it a painting, listening to music or anything, and questioning myself, what the fuck is that? You know, as soon as I question as soon as I have that question, I engage myself into a dialogue. I engage myself and I work to complete what's in front of me, and this is something I cherish a lot. Yeah, definitely. And Pablo, I'm just gonna do this because basically people do not know, but I have a TV in front of me, and I'm gonna cover it because it's disturbing me.
Don't worry, I can do this.
You can do that. Wonderful.
Yes.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. I don't like, I don't like to be overloaded by images and stuff. Last night I went to a show in Santiago, a band from the 90s, Primus. Do you know that?
Yeah.
Primus. I don't really care, really, honestly, about the music. But the problematic was that I could not listen to music because basically there was just all those images all the time, overloading the viewers. And I'm like, why do you fucking put images all the time? And there are fucking a lot of images. And at some point, I was like, I could not focus, you know. And I think for me, who act as actually on a I've been making more than 700 films. It's a mess, you know. Yeah. I've been making so much. It's a very important question to keep in mind. How do you not at the same time overload the viewer or listener? How do you create a space for him to engage in a different way, you know? Mm-hmm. But there's so much to explore.
I think about that last point, like how do you create a place for the viewer that not to be oversaturated? I think that explains maybe the way that you film, right? Like the way that you do like one take most of the time. Just follow the action of what's happening now. I'm not gonna super edit it. Maybe you do some cuts for, I don't know, for another reasons, but not to tell a story, right? Like if you want to keep that type of rhythm to it.
I'm interested in the flow of things. I was just thinking about it yesterday. I believe everything becomes something else. That's very much the principle of reality to me. Nothing disappears, nothing dies then. I do not believe in death. I do believe in changes. I do believe in movements. I do believe we have to accompany those movements and to make them more fluid, maybe. And so what I'm interested in the way I'm, in a sense, editing my own films is to create that fluidity, to go even from one cut to another with such a fluidity that you cannot even view it, you know? To go from one sound to another with such a way to mix them together that it's so natural, you know? I like how could I say? It's just all about this image of the river flowing, you know? Trying to catch that flow. And to go again with nature. And I do believe, in a sense, how could I say, we have to re-engage ourselves in a poetical relationship through our languages into arts, because it doesn't make sense to defend nature, to be an ecologist, and to not change as well our languages of expressions, you know? And I do believe it goes together. It's a coherent move to kind of like redevelop our artistic languages and understand how to approximate more and more the language of nature, and especially in the field of cinema, which I think has been very away from nature, very away. Just the simple fact of producing a film for too much money with too many people, spending too much energy, it's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. You know what? It does not make sense, and we do not question that enough. 2 days ago, one of my last idol died, Jonas Mikas. I call him my last idol. He was my hero. He was really a hero for me. He was a hero of a lo-fi type of filmmaking, of amateur filmmaking, of a way to kind of like engage with reality in an extremely simple way. He used to say some beautiful things. I was reading about it yesterday. He used to praise the mistake, for example. He wanted to make a cinema less perfect. And I do believe in this so much. I think we have to get away from the idea of perfection. Nothing's perfect, especially not the humankind. And I think as long as we respect our mistakes, our limits, and that's the way we can really re-engage with reality.
Is that something that you've learned over the years of making all these films, or is something that you started with?
No, like I learned that by making a lot. Even though I had, lots of like
soul searching, right?
Yeah, I've read a lot in the past. I got very engaged politically. Through such readings, through Guy Debord or through Hakim Bey and stuff like that. But it's this relationship with reality really came from my own experiences with reality, very much. And I do believe that's the only thing which counts. that you can only count on your own experience to understand reality. There is nothing else, actually, you know.
Yes.
You can read thousands of books about reality to try to make yourself around that, but no, it's not gonna work. Do it. Go, dive in it, you know, experiment. Open all the doors possible with a smile.
That's beautiful, man. Talking about your experience, of course, I'm trying to make sense of whatever this life is or this reality is. I wanted to maybe talk about the human being that you've met with all your travels, with all your the countries, the different cultures that you've met, different rituals. It's amazing. It's as I said, it was difficult to quantize, but in your experience, this human being, do you think is there like one type of human being or like one kind of conscious that we all share, but we do not realize yet, something like that?
I like the word the fact that you use the word consciousness. Of course, and I do believe we have to. When I say re-engaging our relationship with reality, I mean we have to research with our own tools, and I do believe the artistic tools are as valuable, even more than the scientific tools of the day. As long as we understand that we've always been living in a world made of beliefs, we've always been believing through different ways, and nowadays we live in an era where we do believe a little bit too much on the same thing. What I mean that basically the religion of the day is named modern science, and we do trust it a little bit too much. And I think it's very important to kind of like understand that this modern Western science is basically very limited in its tools to understand, to study reality. How would you study reality if your tools are limited? Well, you're going to have a limited version of reality. And I do believe the artistic tools are a way to kind of like expand beyond that. What I mean also in the sense that the artistic tools comes from the shamanic tools. Or basically I do believe art have to relink itself with the origins of this shamanic relationship with the world, you know? Because the shaman was actually that one who was at the same time the artist, the healer and the scientist. He was those three things in one. And he's very much still. Except we've sort of like put himself on the side for so long, and we developed a way to study reality that we then sort of like tried to impose on everybody around the world. Then nowadays I think it's very important to recreate alternatives, and so just as you said, my desire little by little I guess has been to sort of like propose an alternative vision of reality. Where I would go around the world, exactly, and I was lucky because of my own privilege that I really think I should use at the same time. I don't want to be guilty about being a white European male dude who I did not grow up at all in any rich family, but I did grow up in a place where, for example, my passport, French passport, opens many doors. So I was like, how can I use those privileges to actually engage myself in reality and propose an alternative vision of it? A sublime vision. A fucking sublime vision of that stuff, I really think we live in a world where images have such a deep impact on the way we perceive reality. But they do have an impact. Images change reality because what's at the base of reality? Imagination. If we do not imagine the reality at its best, we're gonna fuck it, and that's what we're doing it. We are destroying our reality because actually we are also not able to create the images to sublime that reality. So it's a very simple thing what I'm saying actually. I'm just saying that basically the mass medias, and most of us nowadays, through social medias, we are fucking destroying reality because we're fucking up our minds. We're just destroying our minds, mate. Because it's all about the spectacular, the drama, the death. And it's very hard, actually, way more difficult to talk about love and talk about beauty.
Yes,
but it's our fucking mission. We have to go there.
Yeah, reality is not made of all the spectacular things that happen to you.
It's actually the exact opposite.
Yes.
And I'm really wondering, how can I film the banal,
Yeah.
the everyday thing, but actually make it extraordinary. I really want to sublime those elements, and that's what I've been trying to do over all those years, over all those travels. Just knocking at someone's door and saying, well, I've heard what you're doing, I want to celebrate it and sort of like give it a bigger echo. And not because I want many people to come to your remote village, no, because I want to inspire people to share your knowledge a bit more.
There's something that you said in your TED Talk that I really liked. It was like, the way we show this world is gonna change the way we see this world.
Absolutely.
And that's
The
something
way
that
we live in this world.
yeah,
is
that's what you're talking about, right? Like,
absolutely.
if people start seeing the banal as something spectacular, something that has to be celebrated and appreciated, maybe we're gonna just slow a bit.
Exactly. And maybe celebrate the present moment.
Yes.
And maybe at the end of the day, I might gonna be able to slow down myself, which is gonna be good as well.
do you have like a sense of again the humans as a race, like a major sense of it? Like, I don't know, we're just staring in the wrong direction, maybe the thing that you're saying, or it's something that is gonna vary within each culture or within each history of a land. Do you think that there's like something in common with all the people that you met? This the Haitian.
There's much more in common than in differences. It's obvious. It's most 99% of it is in common.
Where's the common ground? Do you think?
It's we all come from the same place, mon ami.
Mhm.
We all come from the same place. It's kind of like funny. It's not funny actually, because it pisses me off a lot. But we have such a restricted vision of reality and of identities nowadays. I think it's a big problem. The major problem maybe of our society nowadays is the identity problem. How do we deal with it, you know? How do we understand actually not that long ago at all, especially in terms of the life of the planet, we were actually just the same, or actually completely the same. And we're actually, most of humankind is completely similar. We just disguised ourselves. We just put different ropes and started to play different roles. It's just a massive theater. But actually, we have to, if we want to look back in the past, we should not stop the past at 100 or 200 years ago. Or depending on what arranges you. No, go deeper. Go 20,000, 30, 50,000 years ago. And more. And especially remember yourself that humanity is just such a tiny little thing on the back of planet Earth, you know? If planet Earth was 24 hours long up to now, we will be like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary. And what about the next 2 seconds then? What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I think with that larger vision of reality, the fact that we all come from the stars, for example, which is a very beautiful way to say it, but actually it's not a simple, beautiful way to say it. This is what happened in a way. We hold stardust. So as long as you keep this in mind, you cannot hate the other. You start to engage yourself in a process of understanding him. Mm. You're like, it's like understanding your brother. Why do I disagree with you today, brother? What's happening with you, sister? How do we create that dialogue again? How do we re-engage ourselves? How do we then understand the immigration process in a different way nowadays? Which is a very big thing, which is going to explode more and more into our faces. Here in Chile or there in Europe. Because you were telling me there was a lot of like immigration tensions.
Yes.
Actually here nowadays as well.
Yeah, it is kind of an issue. And we've talked about it here with many musicians from around Latin America. That is an issue everywhere. Like everyone has like a race that they don't like for some reason. Like, and this... What you're saying is this lack of conscience that we all come from the same place and that we're basically the same, just we're different in the same ways, you know? Like, how do you think that we can get to that communication again, re-engaging in this communication? Do you think is art maybe a way?
The artists are we are very much responsible. Actually, artists, I really say artists on very, very large way. I do believe everybody's an artist in its own right at some point. But I do believe we failed big time. We failed big time in the past 50 years, I think, to kind of like engage art with reality in a way that it would still sort of maybe I'm tripping there, but I do believe art has always been a way to explore reality and to explore alternative paths to live together, to propose alternative ways. Hey, what about that? Let's try this. Let's try that. Let's try that. And as long as we sort of like start to enter the world of the conceptual art and such things like that, we completely lost it. Because we entered our mental, we developed an intellectuality on top of reality, which was absolutely not needed. Absolutely not. And then we created contemporary art and bullshit like that. And it's completely it's out of control. This is really nuts. This doesn't make any sense. I was just in a museum this morning because I'm going to play in that place tomorrow, actually. And it was very interesting. It's a very beautiful space. I'm very happy. They give me an incredible technology to play with. But as soon as I hear the word contemporary art, I'm like, shh. This is bullshit, mate.
I know what you mean.
This is why do you create such genres? There is nothing like that. It's just you're tripping. It doesn't exist. Everything is art in a sense. Then everything is contemporary actually as well. Everything is. I was asking the guys about the presence of the Mapuche art into their library. I'm very excited about researching on the Mapuche culture, and I have this extraordinary recording from what's his name? José Pérez. He is a researcher of the Mapuche culture. Extraordinary album. I think recorded in the 90s, maybe earlier than that. Anyway, and then the guy was like, no, here it's about contemporary art. I'm like, this is so wrong. Anyway, fine.
The thing is that those that type of art maybe just push the audiences or the public away. Like, you're not good enough to understand this.
No, it's a completely wrong approach to this. And I've always been trying to be very careful about that, to make films, to make recordings which are extremely easy to access. I do not want you to need any kind of like prior formations, education to get it. It's not at all about that, because actually it's even not about getting it. It's not about getting it. It's about experimenting it. It's about, I'm interested in that sensorial relationship, right? And I do believe music have this extraordinary mission of awakening the trance, awakening our bodies to something else that escape the mental relationships. And I do believe that's where I want also, at least my form of cinema to reach, to explore. It's not about telling a story. It's really about creating the conditions of transcendence at some point. What do I mean by transcendence? I do mean that understanding that feeling definitely that we are all unified on a higher level. And I do believe this is where we should maybe all try to reach nowadays, recreating this dialogue. I've been living for the past 5 years in Brazil, and I've been seeing that dialogue disappearing little by little over the past 4 years, and I've seen that around my friends. Amongst my friends, they were very pissed against the others, very pissed against the conservative, very pissed against the evangelicals and so on.
And they used to be friends all between them?
Yeah, they never really got along, but it's getting worse, definitely. And I'm like, this is not the way to go, even though those guys are actually doing some pretty horrible stuff. Yeah. And that dude, we just all elected that dude. He's a nut. He's a complete nut.
Bolsonaro, you mean, right?
Yeah. But I'm like, shit, how do we... now it's time to awaken ourselves and to create new forms of dialogue.
That's it. How do you, it's about understanding why this happened, because this happened. There's millions of people that elected the guy. So
understanding our responsibilities of not being able to create the conditions of the dialogue, and it was something which really moved me to tears. Just before the elections in Brazil, there's suddenly this like switch in many people. On the left side, mostly on the artistic side as well, especially to create the conditions of the dialogue. A lot of my friends went out and in the streets with a little pancart, with a little thing written "Quer falar? Podemos falar pouco hoje?" do you want to talk? Can we talk a bit? And it was extraordinary, really, to see that. And there was a lot of hope suddenly. In between the 2 rounds, there was a lot of hopes for people to be able to turn that. Of course, it was too late as a way to wake up. But it was a great lesson, I think, for all of us. We cannot escape the dialogue, mon ami.
That's it.
Even with the worst, darkest forces in front of you, you have to fucking engage in dialogue. And I think that's our mission nowadays. And I do believe creativity, art, and so on have to deal with that more than anything else and show the way. Mm-hmm.
To understand communications in this new way, but because in social media most of the time people are trying to win an argument more than communicating.
Exactly.
So it's really difficult to engage in communications.
Which is again, I think, going back to this idea I was sort of like mentioning quickly, Jonas Mekas. He used to say that. He used to say how much it is important to re-engage in mistakes, for example. You know, and that's something I really like to say a lot. Actually, I do like mistakes. In my own films, actually. I do like to keep the mistakes inside. I do believe that's the only way for us to avoid perfection and to kind of like regain our humanity, in a sense, you know? Yeah. We have to fucking downgrade, you know?
Yeah,
on some levels, you know?
And to be able to say that, I was wrong.
Yes.
And
accept that.
Yeah.
It's nothing bad about it. Actually, it's very good that you got wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Because everything is an experience. Everything is a learning. And good, just like enjoy and cherish that mistake you did. Cherish it. Take it with you for a while. Dance with it. You might not want to do it again. Fine, good. But learn from it, really, and face it. And I do believe we don't face our mistakes anymore. And the problematic, obviously, of what's coming in front of us, of all the development of new technologies and especially AI, is that we completely erase the mistakes out of the perspective, you know. So that's a very big change, I think, for the coming years. How do we engage in digital technologies while maintaining a human weakness in it? And that's kind of like a cinema I like to explore as well, you know, by shooting in one take, by not rehearsing anything, by often not doing a second take. I like to keep that fucking brutal almost thing of the moment. And I don't know, I see it breathing, you know?
Yes, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Let's go to see and hear some of the music that you've recorded. I told you about this video that we're going to show over here. It's Nikaido Kazumi in Osaka. It's 9 years ago, I think.
Was it?
Yes. It's 2010 or 2009, I think.
Time do not exist.
Yes. And it's can tell us about a bit of Nikaido. I think it's a beautiful story, right? The way that you met her.
It's a very simple, very short story. But basically, I got invited in Japan at the time, fuck that long ago, for the very first time. And already the conditions of me being invited to Japan were completely crazy. Basically, I received an email from a guy, and it was a very long email. And I did not take the time to read it entirely at the time. It took me a few weeks to come back on that email. But basically, that guy wanted to invite me to Japan to document his idol, Kazuki Tomokawa, a poet and a folk artist. And anyway, and so I went there, and I went there with 2 friends, actually, for 2 weeks. We followed Tomokawa, Kazuki, in his life, in his concerts. And we were based in Tokyo, where he lives, in Mitsubishi. I think it's Mitsubishi, but anyway, and but one day we went to play in Osaka, and when he played in Osaka, there was this opening act before him. I didn't know her, and I remember being backstage, drinking sake, obviously preparing for the show, being completely nuts, and I hear this voice. I'm like, fuck, what is that voice? It's insane. And I went to the inside the venue, and I saw her on stage, and I was really mesmerized. It's very rare that I end up like, in front of like, wow, what an angel, a complete angel, extraordinary presence, extraordinary voice. And she would basically do everything she wanted, and I was just like, I burst into tears. I filmed her a little bit on stage, but then at the end of the entire night, just before leaving, actually, I met her again. I'm like, oh, Nikaido-san, can we make a film now? Oh no, actually, no, somebody says like, can I film you? Can I film you at some point? I would love to dedicate a film to you. And she's like, oh yes, but I'm leaving in a few hours back to Hiroshima where I live. I'm like, oh shit, can we do it now then? She's like, no. It's like, yes, yes, we can do it. I tend to insist a little bit more in the past, actually. I was a bit tough sometimes. But I was, no, we have to do it. We have to do it. And I was pissed drunk, actually. But she accepted, actually. And then she prepared her guitar, went to the street, and then we had a little walk, the time for us to make this little video. And it's magic, mon ami.
It is magic. So we're gonna go see it, and we're gonna go hear it. It's Nikaido Kazumi through the lens and through the eyes of Vincent Moon.
Arigatou gozaimasu.
違った
Seguimos, we're back doing this interview with Vincent Moon, esta entrevista que estamos haciendo en inglés
en inglés.
Para seguir conversando.
Es muy mal.
Sí, podemos hablar temas más grandes en verdad en inglés.
Claro.
So, we just finished seeing and hearing the beautiful Nikaido Kazumi from Japan.
She's amazing,
Yeah.
Definitely. And yeah, no, it was incredible. I really, of course, when I was watching it again, I was thinking, oh yeah, obviously what this overused formula of the haiku. But yes, I kind of like the idea of this visual haiku. Well, I mean, what's the film about? Just someone walking in the street playing music.
Yeah.
What the fuck? You know, why would you care?
You don't even have like a background for it. It's like a wall.
No.
Most of the time.
And actually, I do. That's really the way I like to film, without having any idea, without giving any directions. That's why I don't call myself a film director, because I don't direct anything. You know, I really like to undirect, to kind of like get lost. You know. Let's get lost in reality for a little while and see what happens. That's what I'm excited about. And I think that in that film, for example, but I think in most of my work, this is hopefully quite present. I think, yes, this idea of like actually all the stories are there, all around you, all the time. Why don't you just look around and open yourself to that? Why would you go into your mind, write a story you have in mind and do everything possible to make it happen? This is weird. This is very weird. You know what I mean? We don't question that enough. It seems normal for us to make fictions, to create stories. But I'm like,
I think
maybe it's enough. Maybe we can like just now dive into reality again and understand actually this is all. We are already living in a fiction, mon ami. It's already an illusion. It's made of our imagination. Why don't you fucking deal with that now? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the translation of the written word, you know, that we have these big books that are fiction, so we have to have these big movies that are fiction. But I understand what you mean now. Like, it's okay that they're there, but they don't have to dominate the pop culture, you know.
Exactly.
The same happens with music. I mean, I was telling you this, but when I heard this, it's something that I have never heard in my life. Like, not even. I'm sorry. It's just
no, it's good. It's good. It's part of
yes,
reality.
Part of the
It's getting in.
Woo-hoo! That is life right there.
Right,
but
chaos in Santiago.
Yeah, the thing is that when I listened to this for the first time, I was like, that was so completely removed from my experience. This music, not just the language of it, but the cadence, you know, like the quietness of it. That made me realize how little I knew about music in general, because this is not like some obscure music that you go to find like in the jungle or something. It's part of like pop culture in Japan, but it doesn't reach me, you know. So, so I am aware of what you mean, and I concur. Like the pop culture can tolerate more, you know. We can have more than just the big budget films or big budget movies.
Sure. And at the same time, listening to you, so talking about all these like those big books of the past, those big Bibles of the past, those ways to deal with reality. I'm really, what I'm excited about those days, mon ami, is to really dive back into orality, into oral knowledge. A knowledge which is actually able to move, to change, to evolve, Mm-hmm. And I do believe that, in a sense, improvisation, in the improvisation tools, the ability to be able to improvise with reality is an extraordinarily powerful tool to deal with reality, because that's the way we can also recreate this ancient link towards this cosmic relationship with nature. Nothing is fixed, everything's moving all the time, and I do believe the oral knowledge is actually allowing that to happen, allowing the little mistake to get into the game and change it little by little. Obviously, if you start to refer to some ancient text and say this is it, well, then you're fucked, because that's only humankind who stops moving. The rest is still evolving, mon ami. Let's go with the flow. Let's dive into nature. Let's understand there is just a constant movement. And I think we're gonna get better, much better, and hopefully get out of this nostalgic take on reality that we are living in now.
Yeah. Like this place that we put ourselves into. Like, why? we can do what you said. Like, just live, improvise, be present.
Mm-hmm.
Mathieu. And I like the pronunciation. I'm just saying it.
Yeah.
So, my friend, you're here to show the film about La Cueca that we made 6 years ago. A film that actually features some of the big names in Cueca that are even not with us in this plane anymore, like Baucha and Margot Loyola. And I want to talk about the experience of getting yourselves acquainted with the Cueca, like the first time that you hear it. Because I know this story, and it's a very powerful one for us, that we can hear it every day, but we don't see it with the eyes and hear it with the ears that you did that first time.
You mean the story of...
First time you heard it?
The first time I heard it was basically when I came to Chile 9 years ago, and I was still at the time very much into pop music, or let's say more influenced by this indie rock that I used to record. And then we did this film together, Temporary Valparaiso, where it was very much focused again around those folk artists, and I mean great people, and I totally love them, and Chinoy, Pascola y la Vaca, and Fernando Milagros, and Camila Moreno, and others. Wonderful people, really wonderful. It was an amazing time. But at the same time, at this moment of my life, I wanted really to dig deeper and to get really under the skin. And I have this insatiable desire to explore deeper and deeper everywhere I go. And I think this was also very much linked to that basically I wanted to know what else can I see in Chile. And almost nobody told me about La Cueca, except Natalia. Especially Natalia, we became then the producer of the film. Natalia Arcos. Natalia Arcos. Natalia took me one night to a Cueca place. I forgot which one it is actually now.
I think it's Comercio Atlético, right? No?
Maybe. Oh, wow, cool. Because I'm doing a screening at Comercio Atlético on Thursday.
Yeah, I think it was that place.
It's wonderful. And it blew my mind. Basically, it blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, what is this? What is this music? What is this dance? What's this incredible feeling of love in that place? And suddenly I was like, this is what I want to explore and sort of like bring back towards the light, I guess. To this level of popular culture, away from the elite, back into the roots, into the like something really raw and powerful. And I really decided on that spot, I was like, I want to come back to make a film on La Cueca. That's for sure. I didn't know it would end up being such a long film. But then when I came back 6 years ago, together with Natalia and yourself, mon ami, We went to how long was the shooting? 2 weeks maybe.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Yeah. And we went into many places and started to accumulate some different stories and recordings, and it was extraordinary. And I think it was for me really a very ritualistic type of experiences as well, you know.
Yeah.
I've been really interested in using exploring the use of music in terms of rituals, again in terms of trance in a way. And I would say this is a trance music on many levels. The fact that it's so repetitive as well, the fact that it's like always the same format sort of, the same form of dance, and it puts you little by little. It's like not that far from a mantra, you know, not that far from this drony type of like thing always coming back. And it blew my mind, and I just wanted to celebrate that culture and show it with with my own eyes. Sort of like I just realized, so there was very little recordings or documentaries made on La Cueca, as if it was not deserving enough attention. And I'm like, this is exactly what we should do nowadays: celebrate these different alternatives, you know. And I'm so excited to be able to finally show it tonight.
Yeah, and the thing that happens here in Chile is that more or less people don't really like cueca when they're growing up, because they're shown this other type of cueca that it's like very rigid and a very, I don't know, posh, you know, like like for contests or whatever. And this, what I learned that time, because I didn't know about maybe all of the things that are in this movie. I just learned it with you, and this that we record, it was like people in their neighborhoods, like on the street, or having a drink and singing, like belting this music, that it was part of them, you know, like, but not in a sense that is for a contest. It's a sense of who they are, you know, like, and who we are also as. Not to say just as Chileans, because that sounds like a little chauvinistic, just to say that as part of people from this part of the world, you know, we have like roots in it, and part of those roots are our music, and this music that was like kept from us from some time during the dictatorship, I was like looked like something minor, like something that's supposed to be like this disgusting, you know. Just to reconnect with it, it was so incredibly moving for me, and it opened a gate to understand who I am as a Latin American or as a Chilean, you know. And I think that to have that little, like, I don't know, handle on my own reality, it's very, very, very beautiful, and I think that's the power of music, and the music that it's maybe ritualistic, as you say. Like, I don't think that this is just a type of genre of music. I think it's something more. Oh yeah, sure. For me, that's why I was really excited to try to document. This is not really the music only. This is an ensemble. This is a cosmic dance. I really like this idea. This is a real cosmic type of relationship, and it all goes together. You know, but because when you think about rituals, what are rituals? They are just a gathering of many different art forms for something which goes beyond any of those art forms separated, you know. It's the union of, basically, this is the greatest artistic creation of humankind, rituals. That's where it all meets. That's where we break down those boundaries, because actually those boundaries do not exist. I do not think they exist at all. And I do believe it's our mission nowadays to break down those genres, to get away from this idea of separation in between different art forms and so on, and try to merge and merge. And I do believe as well the digital age is there to allow this to happen very much, you know. And I think that's our mission, to make it accomplished, to turn this into light. And again, just also reacting to what you just said, I think that it shows also how much we need like outsiders nowadays, or people who are basically able to show you what's next door, you know, because we are looking always towards the end of the world, but we don't really know our neighbor. And I think if that was my mission here in Chile, I'm very happy we did it, you know. I think it was very important for me to kind of be able to try to make this perceived in a different way, you know, by people. And again, I think just creating that dialogue, putting this again in the middle of the table, and say, like, okay, well, what do we do with that, mon ami, you know? Because this is beautiful. You gotta fucking take care of it, you know? That's exactly it. It's so interesting what you say about outsiders, because yes, of course they have this immense influence in all of us, and that translates also to this immigration thing. Like they also like help us to realize and these things we are lacking. You know, like I don't know, this compassion for the other. You know, like he's not coming here because he wants to, you know, or she wants to. She's coming because she's being forced, you know, by whatever reasons. But to be able to look at each other and what we were talking about, you know, like recognize yourself in the others.
Exactly.
It's something that outsiders help us to do, and if we understand it as such, I think.
Definitely.
Something that you were saying also about the rituals is something that you wanted to talk about. Is this ritual called? Remember the name of this ritual?
Oh, the Jatilan ritual from Indonesia.
Yeah, this is absolutely like a fusion of art.
This is insane, actually. It's kind of fun because you just asked me about a film right now, and I just came up with this idea just like that. Didn't think about it much. But the Jatilan, and fuck, what to say about it? It blew my mind. It really changed actually my perspective on what we call culture when I discovered it. It's quite funny because I swear I did not think about it before, but this makes me think a lot about La Cueca on many levels. Really?
Yes, really?
Yeah, it doesn't look like, but actually yes, because in a sense it's a very popular take away from the elite, away from the established and respectful Indonesian music. So Jatilan comes from the island of Java, the main, not the biggest, but the main, let's say, island in Indonesia, and especially central Java. So the Jatilan is what I call a popular trance ritual, or basically it's a show performance made by a group of, I think there were 40 people, dancers, musicians, and those guys that you see who are sort of like policemen taking care of the young guys in trance, and they go from a village to a village and they do set up their performance. And their performance is a mix of many levels. It's a mix, especially musically, of some elements of gamelan, which is very the respectful Javanese, instrument and so on, but mixed with other stuff like electric guitar, drums, karaoke style type of singing. Wow. And it's all mixed into this crazy music, which is to me one of the greatest music I've ever heard. Completely mad. Extraordinary, powerful, and beautiful. And they do this performance, and during the entire night, I was like, what is happening here? Is this real or not? Are they really in trance or are they faking it? And my little French brain was fucked in front of it. I was like, where can I put this? In which genre does it fit? In which box, And I think it's really from that night that I realized those separations do not exist actually, because everything is real, It's a longer type of reflection that I don't think I will really have time to achieve now, but basically I do believe everything is real. There is no fake. You have to deal with this now, especially in the era of the fake news. It's a very hard idea to integrate, but actually if we understand that reality is based on the imagination, it gives us a lot of power, but also it creates a lot of trouble. And in that sense, I do realize that everything happens with more or less good intentions, for sure, but everything happens. And that in that ritual, everything happened. This mix of performance, circus type, mixed with some local shamanism, gave birth to something which is absolutely not fitting into our way to understand reality in black and white, Yes. There is no duality there, or in the sense that there is not sacred on one side and profane on the other. What I mean is that actually every little act is a sacred act. And even in such a spectacular way, as long as we dive again into the sacred, then realize the sacred is a beautiful game with reality. And it's beautiful experiments, which can be an entertaining experiment, but such a deeper one, you know. I'm very happy you're playing this. Can you put the sound a bit louder?
How did you get to this place?
I went there with a friend. I just ask people.
Do you do this? This is the question that you posed in your TED talk. You said like, what is important to record here today?
Yeah.
That's the question
Exactly.
that you ask most of the time, right?
Exactly. I think what I mean by this is that if you do not basically make your tools evolve to be able to live here now, then you're always going to be in trouble, or you're going to put reality in trouble because of your mental approach to it. What I mean is that I'm interested in improvisation. How do we improvise with music? I think I understand how it works because it's at the heart of music. But how do we improvise with cinema? We haven't really been taught about that because cinema developed through the 20th century as this large industry mostly based on mental approach to reality, as we said, fiction and so on. But I do believe there is actually another way to approach reality with a much more improvised one. But to have this improvised approach with the cinematographic tools, you have to adapt yourself and to create a workflow which allows you to react like that to what's happening now, here now. Which means that all the production, or the way to get money simply in the world of cinema is basically playing against reality. It's playing against the moment because basically, even in documentary type of filmmaking, you are gonna have to formulate ideas in your brain, put them by writing, even though you say it's not exactly what's gonna happen, but the people who are gonna give the money, they want to know. So basically, you're gonna trap reality into an idea, and then little by little try to make this idea happen in reality. This is very weird. It's very, very weird. While what I'm interested about is basically how can I arrive in a place, ask someone what's up, and next day I'm making a film because that guy gave me an answer, you know. So basically, that's each time I've been traveling, each time I've been in a place, I've always been trying to know what's been recorded in that place, what has been made already, because I don't want to do something which has already been made. I prefer to celebrate the work which has been made if it's a great work. Why not? But especially like realizing what's important to document and to put into the light nowadays, you know?
Just to say that all of this is happening.
Yes.
That's the sense, right? Like what you say, like your little French brain, maybe there's a lot of us that have that brain that needs to put everything in little boxes.
Of course.
So if you go and show this to anyone, you go like, what is this? Where does it fit? And then you either create a box that fits all, or you break all the boxes. You know.
And in a sense, I think the anthropological mind really wants to know. We've been like sort of like we developed such a mind in the Western world, especially because that's the way we can tend to approach reality. What is it about? Where is this? Why do they do this? But I do believe when you approach the sacred and the ritual, it's not really those questions are not that important actually. And I've been having a lot of fights with people saying such things actually. But I do believe that very much. I do believe it's not about understanding the conditions of the context and so on. It's about entering into the experience. And how do you try to basically reformulate that experience through another tool? My tool being cinema, and me believing in the power of a transcendental aspect into cinema, I do believe we have the ability to not only document something and say this is it, but basically transcend that something into something else. And that's something else, because all of my work is also open, it's also all on open source. So basically everybody can copy, do whatever they want with it, except money. So basically what I'm excited about is that how do I take that side of reality, turn it into something else, and propose that as another reality. And then someone else is going to come to that reality, use that, might take the form of then in my case a film, and use that into something else and create something else again, you know?
Yeah.
I really like to understand how can we basically create this unfinished movement.
You think that without context, that's a way that people can do it easier, or it's just
in a sense,
must
yes,
be-
very much.
Yeah.
In a very much. But it's not that I do not give context. Actually, I do not give context in
In
the film itself. I just put the context on the side
Mhm.
to not disturb actually this sensorial type of
Okay,
relationship.
I get what you're saying. Like you're not having a narrator or someone
No,
there
no, no,
like
no.
to explain where you
Exactly.
are. It's just
If you want to dig deeper, well, yes, dig deeper. You know, I'm using a tool which is named Internet, where there is lots of links under the video, and you just take your time. Take your time. I do not want to do the work for you, mon ami. Just go with it. Research for yourself. Because actually there is not one truth. It is stupid to say that, you know. Everything is open. Interpret that action and use that thing, that knowledge that those people maybe very remote from you are doing. How do you apply this to your life, you know?
Mhm.
And I'm talking this away from any could I say, post-colonial type of attitude. This is completely wrong to me, you know what I mean? Well, I think what I'm really trying to do is how do we reinterpret reality without ending? And how do you yourself, through your own work, be it music, be it cinema, be it anything, how do you let this work unfinished? And
Yeah.
how do you let the life go through? How do you let the wind blows through it? And I think it's a matter of humility at some point. This is not my work. My films are not my work. I've just been helping them to exist. But you've been helping me as well in this process. There's been so many energies creating a film, but the film is living by itself. And what's exciting is that this film is still evolving, even though it seems to be finished, you know?
yes.
And that's exactly what I'm excited about.
I know exactly what you mean. And something that I wanted to ask you as well is something that you posted not so long ago about one of the people in charge of Casa do Ignacio de Loyola.
Ah,
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, João de Deus.
João de Deus. He was this
That's a complicated story.
Yes, I know. It was this spiritual leader basically in Brazil, in this place Casa do Ignacio de Loyola,
Yeah.
that he basically abused a bunch of women, more than 300. Actually, they started.
Apparently.
Yeah, apparently they started to complain about it,
That's
and the
right.
guy is like, I think now he's in jail pending a trial or something like that, because there was
There is more.
there was money involved.
There is more stuff coming up every day. It's a huge
Yes.
scandal. It's very extremely embarrassing.
And
It's crazy because he was extremely famous all around the world.
Yes, that's the thing. I think 3 former presidents of Brazil went to him for a spiritual advice or whatever. And why am I talking to Vincent Moon about it? It's because you went to Casa do Ignacio de Loyola,
Mhm.
right? To
make a film about him.
To
Yeah,
make
sure.
a film about him specifically, or about the rituals.
About the place, about basically his work, because he's the leader of the place. He's basically that's why you go there, to see João de Deus, to encounter a magician in a way, a spiritual healer, extremely powerful. And he was extremely powerful, really. And it's not only my own experience. I'm not going to explain my own experience there, but the place was extraordinarily powerful, really, really. And it changed the lives of many, many people around the world.
Powerful in a sense of.
There's such a level of energy. There's how could I say? You know the word egregor? We are basically it's such an egregor. Basically, the level of energy while you enter the place was extremely powerful. I remember our producer bursting into tears when we arrived, and without reason, she was like, "What's happening here?" There was such a level of dedication, of spiritual accomplishment for people to go there and dedicate themselves to heal the others. Always under the figure, unfortunately, of the guru, and I think that's the problem: is this idea of the guru in a way. He became a guru at some point, and anyway. Should I talk really about that guy?
No, just
We made a film. We filmed there because it was part of a longer project named
Just
Hybridos,
to-
the Spirits of Brazil. We made.
I'm interested in the sense that what does that how does that inside how does that affect your research about this common spirituality when you find this type of person that is abusing their power or their spirituality in this very earthly and very bad sense, you
Yeah.
know? Like, does that affect the the way that you see spirituality, like something that could be easily corrupt, or
No,
or it's
but
not?
I knew about that a lot. I think on many levels. I think it's not.
It's not a surprise for you, that?
No. It's it's fucking messy everywhere, and I do believe that basically in such a world we live in, we do face such cases of basically perversion and madness, even in such a man who had such extraordinary power. Have you seen the documentaries about Osho on Netflix?
Yes.
Very interesting stuff. Huh?
Yes, it
Very
is.
interesting. Extraordinary powerful. Really, really incredible. But again, manipulation has always been, there from the beginning in a way. I think what I'm really sad about that story, more than, obviously all those terrible abuses, is that also the extreme, really terrible impact it's going to have on a lot of the other houses which do a quite similar work all around Brazil. I'm talking about thousands and thousands of other places actually, and which are way more humble in their approach, which are not under the guidance of one person, for example. And I think this is very much the key. This idea of the guru,
Would you
the leader is
like
committed
change?
wrong.
Would you change your approach if you get to another place that is similar to Casa do Ignacio do Loyola? Like, if there's like one spiritual guide, like it's very powerful, and you go there and you start shooting, do you think that your experience is gonna change the way you see this, like through the lens? I mean,
Sort of hard to say. I did realize actually through this project in Brazil that that's something I'm really concerned about, is this necessity that we have sometimes to put ourselves into the hands of someone else.
yeah.
And that is problematic definitely, especially in our time. I do believe we have to regain spirituality through a different path to explore our own ritualistic life, and away from doctrines sometimes. I do believe actually in the work of some lines, I do have an extreme respect for the Santo Daime Church, for example, in Brazil, which is so-called Ayahuasca Church, Ayahuasca Catholic Church. Extraordinary work actually they're doing, but they're not under the guidance of one person. There is not a guru. There's not someone that everybody's gonna be like, whoa. No, I think it's much more a common work, and that's what I'm excited about to kind of like explore, to create in terms of conditions. I'm interested like also understanding how artists can like basically create such interfaces, bringing along people into a communal experience where everybody is on the same level and everybody have its word to say.
Like in the same sense that the Pope is not God, you can have your own spirituality away from the church as an institution.
Of course.
That's what you say, right? Like you have your spirituality away from Joao de Deus. It's like,
Oh yeah, no, completely. And I'm really interested in like exploring actually those other alternatives, definitely, And I do believe, especially when they are not linked to a book, as we said before, when they are oral forms of spirituality, they are extremely rich. And in Brazil, you find this more than anywhere else into the Umbanda. For example, Umbanda being this kind of like, quickly said, an evolution of the Afro-Brazilian rituals known as candomblé, and which got mixed with Spiritism, and then more recently got mixed with sacred plants, Santo Daime, ayahuasca, and so on. And it gives birth to this extraordinary rich form of ritual, which are basically always different. Every ritual becomes a completely different experience, and I think this is what we should create the conditions for more and more, definitely.
just to finish, my dear friend, just to finish this conversation, you live in Brazil this like next month. You're gonna you're finished with Híbridos.
Yeah, I'm leaving
there,
Brazil actually.
and you're
next
moving
month.
away.
Yeah.
You don't have any idea, as part of what we were talking about, like living in the present. But what would you like your mind to go, like, because before you started Híbridos, you still had like the sense that you wanted to go deeper. Is that what you want to do now? Maybe go deeper, even like in the deepest sense of the spiritual awakenings, or you want to go outside, maybe just go back a little and start going to the pop culture again, maybe. What do you think your mind is gonna take you?
I'm excited in like building bridges more and more definitely, and re-engaging myself into this pop folk culture that I documented in the past, and understand how can those two things meet, you know. And I do believe a lot of musicians have to engage themselves in a more spiritual process to also change their language, especially singer-songwriters are very much stuck, I think, you believe in a certain type of format, and I do believe it will be the best for us all to dive into a more improvised take on reality. So in a sense, improvisation to me, I really believe in that. I really believe like pushing the words, like trying to engage more and more people into improvised type of relationship. I was wondering what you were showing now.
Yeah, we're showing Temporary Valparaiso.
Temporary Valparaiso.
That's the first time we met.
Yeah.
And the first thing.
It's funny because it's a very rare film in a sense for me that I mixed it with like archival images of Valparaiso shot by Joris Evans in the 60s, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
Valparaiso. Very interesting actually. That extraordinary films, those black and white images from time to time. Yeah, I think so. Basically, no. Asking you about what's. I don't know if you're asking what's next, but obviously, personally, what's next to me is to explore. You know, I guess after exploring a lot and traveling so much, I guess it's all about reducing now, and maybe exploring also, you know, myself and exploring silence.
Yeah,
I have a lot to do there. There's a
lot to cover in silence. Maybe that's a good subject to get immersed in. Vincent Moon, thank you so much, my friend.
Muchísimas gracias, Pablo. Qué bueno estar aquí con usted. Realmente.
Gracias. Para mí ha sido
un placer inmenso.
Un placer para mí también.
Wow, qué bueno.
Y nos vamos a ir. We're gonna leave you with a little bit of the Jatilan, popular trance ritual from Java. Y me despido. Mi nombre es Pablo Esquer. Thank you so much again, Vincent Moon.
Muchísimas gracias, amigo. Hasta la próxima.
Chao. Nos vemos.
Matur nuwun.
Udah. Good.
Bang. Bang. Gano'n sa ayaw mo dito. Oo, ya. Gano'n sa ilo. Oo. Bro. Bro. Bro.
Se acaba por hoy la revuelta al mundo. Mañana volvemos por más. Sigues en Radionauta.